Today we visit two beautiful ancient European cities and take a tour through an amazing garden through the lens of a veteran gardener. You won't want to miss it, so stay tuned as we garden smart in Europe.
Bring the outdoors into your everyday life. Bass Pro Shops can outfit all your adventures, even those in your backyard. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 75 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
The Jaguar F-Pace.
The crew at GardenSMART has been producing gardening shows broadcast across the country on public broadcasting stations for 20 years. And over those years, we've visited gardens only in the US because there are so many amazing gardens to see in this country. Because of the 20-year milestone, we decided to branch out and go overseas. We've been hearing a lot about river cruises and thought we'd visit some beautiful gardens with a cruise ship as our guide. We were on the MS Amadeus Silver III. Although a long ship, over 400 feet, it carries a maximum of 168 passengers. The smaller number of fellow travelers made it possible to meet and talk with as many of the guests as possible. And there was an interesting mix of both young and old. The accommodations were exceptional. Very comfortable rooms, excellent support staff, fantastic food and entertainment. We flew into Amsterdam, then spent 10 days visiting beautiful sites in the Netherlands and Belgium. Included were several other larger cities like Rotterdam and Antwerp, as well as smaller towns like Bruges and Ghent. Today we immerse ourselves in the medieval majesty and rich heritage that is Ghent. Ghent is an historic city, yet at the same time a contemporary one. The modern daily life of the city's active inhabitants plays itself out against a gorgeous backdrop. Walking through the city of Ghent is like walking through an historical painting, an architectural masterpiece of castles, cathedrals, churches, and old merchant houses. Gem in the Flanders region of Belgium, Ghent offers a fascinating cultural cocktail brimming with trendy, modern urban life, a place where anything goes in a city that feels human. After a tour of the city, I pay a visit to Paul, the Director of Horticulture at Ghent University's Botanical Garden, to learn about the more than 10,000 plant species that thrive on this 2.75 hectare site. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
You have such a fascinating job as a professor in botany, but then also as the manager of this beautiful garden. What can you tell us about the garden?
What I can tell you, how many hours do you have?
All day. All day.
Okay. It's a small university garden. It was created under Napoleon's reign here in Ghent, and gradually it became a part of the town of Ghent, and then afterwards was involved in the university, Ghent University. And now it's mainly for teaching and education and practical courses, and of course for free visits for all of Ghent and the whole of the world. Huh? You're public now.
Right, right. And one of the purposes of this garden is as a display garden, so people can come look at the many very rare and unusual plants that you have. And then also there are some substantial taxonomic collections here.
Yes.
And some very, very special ones indeed.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through some of the highlights of the garden, or the sections that I'm sure you love all of it, so it's like asking you to pick your favorite child, but what are some of the highlights?
I can pinpoint you to that tree over there, the umbrella pine. Okay. That's a Belgian champion, meaning there's no bigger, thicker specimen of that species here in Belgium.
Wow.
And that's due to the fact that we have a warm garden. It's a garden surrounded by town, and the temperature has risen 4 degrees above the normal level here in this region. So we can grow many plants from Mediterranean climates, from New Zealand, from south of France, from Greece, Italy, you name it.
Right, and that's because of the radiant heat from the houses and the city?
The heat island of the town of Ghent, yes.
So I notice you also have some beautiful perennial borders. There's a lovely alpine garden, incredible collections of azaleas and rhododendrons. There's color everywhere.
We have a number of 10,000 species here in this university garden, and nearly all of these species are labeled, and that's interesting for visitors because when you are walking around in parks or gardens of friends, you'll never see the labels, but here you got the information with the name of the plant, the family, its area. So.
Right, and that's very helpful for visitors. And you're right, many public gardens, you know, they have inadequate labeling, and so if you find something you really love, it may be hard to track it down. I want you to talk a little bit about your specialization, because I find that very fascinating. It's one of my favorite categories of plants, and super important, especially from a texture standpoint in gardening, which are grasses and calyxes.
Yes, but they have grasses and sedges have an image problem. They look dull. They have beautiful brown spikelets, and but they are quite interesting. I would say they are hidden treasures, and you know the hidden treasures are the best treasures.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, you spoke about some of the very specific microclimates that you have here, and I understand there's a beautiful Mediterranean garden that you have. Let's go take a look at that.
Okay, let's go.
In most gardens, there are microclimates that are created either by structures or by windbreaks, changes in elevation, and those are really fun parts of the garden, I think, because it allows us the opportunity to work with plants that may or may not otherwise work in our normal hardiness zone. In some cases, those changes are significant enough that we can bring in a whole range of plants that would otherwise not grow in that region, and this is a wonderful example of that.
Right. Why? Well, we got 2 large greenhouses over there and over there, protecting this spot from eastern winds and northern winds. And it's a spot with south exposition, so I mean it's really hot. The garden is a hot garden, but even here we have plus 3 degrees over the hot garden that we already have. And that's why we have the possibility of growing hundreds of species from Mediterranean climates all over the world.
Right, so this is a very protected space. Of course, the greenhouse behind us on the north side is painted white, so you get a lot of reflected light.
Extra, yes.
Right,
yes.
right, and so we're giving these plants, you know, all the opportunities they need to thrive in this part of Belgium where they wouldn't otherwise grow. In fact, I saw an olive tree. You have olives in Belgium.
The only one.
Right, the only one. Exceptional. I want you to talk about some of the rare and unusual plants here, because so many of our viewers are fascinated by these plants that we don't know. And in fact, there are many in this garden that of course I've never seen. And you've got a really interesting Buglia that has enormous leaves on it, very unusual. What are some of the ones you'd like to highlight?
Selection, that's difficult, Well, a real cypress.
Right.
People often describe their gymnosperms in the garden as cypresses. Not right, there are other species, but that's a real one with the big woody cones.
Right.
Easy to recognize, that's a real one. Another one from South Africa. Come on. Have a look at this plant. See the beautiful flowers, large flowers, and look at inside the flower. Blackish nectar. Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's like
And it's sweet,
it's like a honey.
Yep.
Oh, that's delicious.
And the name of the plant is well chosen, Mele anthus. Anthus is the Greek word for flower, and mele is the Greek word for honey. So this is really a honey flower, blackish honey.
And so how are these pollinated?
By birds, sunbirds in South Africa.
Wow.
You can compare them to the how do you call
Like
these?
a hummingbird?
Hummingbirds, yes.
Okay.
But hummingbirds are American ones. In South Africa, you have a similar thing in the sunbirds. Yep.
And it has a foliage that's very similar to sumac. It's kind of what it looks like.
Yep.
Wonderful.
This one, it's opposite leaves and highly divided leaves, fern-like. And it's an endemic species from the Channel Islands of the coast of California. It's widely described as non-hardy, but look at this one.
Wow. Well, and that's what's so special about these microclimates. For the visitors to come in and see plants that clearly are not growing in their town, probably not even in their region, and they get to actually see those, up close, and I think it's very special.
This is Ghent, really.
Right, absolutely. One of the most common questions that we get from viewers is, how do I have success gardening in the shade? And of course, shade gardening is always going to be a little challenging. The lion's share of all the flora on planet Earth prefers some sunlight. And so there's a narrower range of plants that really want to thrive in shade, but there are certain things that we can do to help them along. And I'd like to discuss that with you today. What are some suggestions you would have for gardeners?
Well, avoid trees.
That's where the shade comes from.
No, our shade is coming from the greenhouse, and so we are lucky here.
Right.
But nevertheless, you can have a walk in forests, and everything that's growing in forests is all right to put in your shady garden. That's common.
Right.
Like the genus Epimedium, example. There are many ferns that are able to grow in full shade. No.
Right, and the biggest thing is of course selecting the right plant, and then understanding that in many cases the plants you selected very well may fail. There's a meaningful section of my garden that's deep shade,
yes.
and every year the range of plants I can grow gets narrower and narrower, and now it's mostly hostas and a few other ferns do well. And then understanding whether your shade is more moist or dry.
Yeah.
And so for the dry shade we see Ophiopogon.
Yeah.
Epimedium, even like Sarcococa that does really well.
Yeah,
and so as you get into more of the moist shade, there are things there like Hosta, Pulmonaria, even many of the Heuchera, Tiarellas in areas where it's like a little more moist.
Well, you got splendid examples here.
Right.
Have a look. The names are with the plants. Use your pencil. Take a picture. That's your plant.
Right. Yeah, and in shade gardening too, I find that looking at adding raised beds when you can, oftentimes the soil under a tree is going to be a really difficult environment to grow in. And in fact, there are certain trees like pecans and hickory that are alleliopathic, so the roots actually excrete a chemical that kills the grass and everything under, so they don't have competition. Well, of course, you're not going to have any success gardening in that environment. And so look at what your soil is doing. Maybe even introduce raised beds if the soil conditions are not.
Raised beds is a good idea. I think we have similar examples here, and raised beds are a splendid idea, really. Yes.
Right, and making sure there's the adequate compost that's added to the soil, so that you've good moisture retention.
The plant will be glad and will be answering your all your efforts. Yes.
Right, excellent.
The plant is doing well. Yeah.
Right, right, and that's what we want as gardeners. We want happy, healthy plants, and that's why we do it.
Okay.
As a continuation of our conversation on microclimates, we enter your glass house, and this is a wonderful example of a highly controlled microclimate. And these are so important to these type of display gardens. The conservatories allow for these collections that absolutely would not be growing in this region because you have nearly perfect control over temperature and humidity. So you're able to create multiple microclimates. I think you have 3 or 4 in this conservatory, and you have housed here these amazing collections. Tell me about your conservatory and the climates that you have here.
Yeah. We have 3 large greenhouses open to the public and 20 more small ones with scientific collections not open to the public. But the 3 ones here are the equatorial climate, the subtropical climate, and the tropical climates. And here the equatorial climate is 100% humidity and temperature around 20-25 degrees. So we are able to grow many tropical plants that you would never see here as living examples. Epiphytes, giant water lilies, giant herbs, tropical vines, you name it. Each of the greenhouses has about 500 species named and labeled for the visitors.
Right, it's so exciting to come visit these conservatories where we can see plants that we would never otherwise see, and in fact it's humbling as a horticulturalist to walk through these collections and not recognize 80% of the material, and so it's a wonderful experience for all of us.
Welcome to the tropics.
Right, indeed. I want you to talk about some of the plants that for a visitor coming over here. What are some of the plants that you think are the highlights or you think are particularly special?
Well, this greenhouse is named after that plant, the giant water lily, and the scientific name is Victoria amazonica, named after the famous Queen of England, Queen Victoria. And the plant was discovered when Queen Victoria was reigning, and the immense plant was named after that immense queen,
right?
Queen Victoria.
Indeed. What are some of the other ones in some of the other environments that you would encourage people to go take a look at?
I would say the epiphytes. We have cacti from the rainforest, bromeliads, begonias, fuchsia, many species from tropical environments you would never see. You can see here trees grown full of epiphytes, and that's something you'll never find in temperate rainforests.
Right, and that's what's so important about these display gardens and the collections that are housed here. It's just giving the community and in your case the world an opportunity to see all these rare and unusual plants, and it's just such a wonderful experience. Paul, thank you so much for spending the day with us. We had a wonderful time.
Okay, fine. You're welcome.
Walking down the cobble walkways that flank the many canals of the city of Bruges in northwest Belgium's West Flanders region instantly transports one to the medieval ages. Known as the Venice of the North, the gabled rooftops of the city's many preserved houses and buildings that line the intricate network of canals are as picturesque as a postcard. The city reached its golden age between the 12th and 15th centuries, when its port became a major platform for trade and commerce due to the advantageous tidal inlet. It was during this time that most of the city's iconic structural landmarks were built, including the impressive Belfry of Bruges, a breathtaking medieval bell tower at the center of Market Square that soars upwards by 83 meters and is a symbol of the city's cultural pride. Each week we travel the country north to south, east to west, visiting some of the most exciting gardens, as well as talking to industry horticulturalists about design principles, new plants, and also how you can be most successful with your home gardens. We also love answering your gardening questions, so visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com.
Bring the outdoors into your everyday life. Bass Pro Shops can outfit all your adventures, even those in your backyard. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 75 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
The Jaguar F-Pace.
Today we visit 2 historical cities in Belgium, tour their streets and their canals to learn more about their architecture and their amazing gardens. If you have questions about anything you've seen today, visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. And remember, even if you're a master gardener, there's always more to learn. So join us next week for more great gardening tips and ideas as we garden smart.